Hello, everyone. This is Damian Chung from Netscope. I'm so happy to be here presenting to you all in Western Canada. As if you don't know me, I've actually started my career in Winnipeg as a University of Manitoba graduate. And so I was hoping that we could do this in person this year, maybe next year though. My role at Netscope is as a business information security officer. I run our corporate security operations programs. And so that, makes me just like you, an operational CISO, trying to manage our overall security program. And we're faced with a lot of these changes, with COVID happening, our perimeter has shifted. And so I want to go through, just exactly what we're seeing, how we've, addressed these, and how Netscope can actually help you through these scenarios, okay? And so if we look at where we were yesterday, and even to some extent today, a lot of organizations still do this. We look at data within our data centers, and all of our users were normally inside of our corporate offices where we could contain that data, or we could have more control over it, more visibility over it. But digital transformation has really shifted how that data flows. For organizations that we have done cloud risk assessments for, we've noticed a lot of cloud SaaS applications being used more and more often over the past few years. On average, over 2,400 cloud apps are being used by these enterprises. Now, if you're like me, and I came from a customer as well. Prior to coming to Netscope 2 years ago, I ran a program where we had 60,000 endpoints and 60,000 users. I thought I could control where my users were going to, but once you start to look at where those users are actually going, a lot of them are cloud apps, and for various reasons, whether it's just something they're used to, or they want to do collaboration with other organizations outside of their company, they start to spin up these cloud apps. And so we're now in this interconnected world where most of the users have moved their data outside of our control. We know that data has grown exponentially over the past few years. So 90% of all data created within the past 2 years, that's only going to continue to grow. And now that data is shifting outside of our data centers into places that we just don't have visibility to. Remote work has always been growing and expanding, and then we just kind of fast track that over the past year. We don't see that slowing down. A lot of organizations have said they're not going to cut back on work from home once the COVID pandemic is over. I think we do have a big growth over the past year, and then the continued growth as remote working has taken shape. But how do we deal with that? Because we kind of look at this castle, the moat, the wall around our perimeter as how we protect our data. But how is this evolving? Because these castles don't exist today for a reason. Most of the users have left. Most of the inhabitants have left the castle compound, and now they're out in various areas. So what have we done? Well, we've put up barriers outside along these paths, and sometimes they're controlled or dictated by what we have to do for compliance. And yes, maybe something like this allows us to check that box. It allows us to say, yes, I've got a control on this path. But as security professionals, we know that the compliance components don't necessarily mean that we're secure. So we need to take a step back and look at the overall situation and assess where are we in terms of our security controls. Are they doing their jobs? Not only are we meeting our compliance, but are we able to protect our data? And digital transformation has just really shifted that network into the internet, because now we have remote workers who are not just sitting necessarily inside of our corporate offices. They could be working from anywhere. They could be working from a coffee shop. They could be working from home. They could be working from an Airbnb on the beach. It's just the nature of how we've evolved our working forces over the past year through COVID. Now, where are they going? Most likely, they're probably not coming back into your data centers anymore. They're going out to the internet, traditional web, or they're going out to cloud SaaS applications or IaaS hosted infrastructure, because maybe you've already shifted there. This work has really changed over the past few years, and now that network, that perimeter, doesn't necessarily apply anymore. Even if we look at where our web traffic has been going, I think even 5 years ago, maybe most of our web traffic was HTTP or HTTPS. Nowadays, we've seen that shift into more cloud services. And so where 80% of our traffic before was traditional web traffic, today, 80 to 90% of that traffic is actually cloud traffic. And how does that differ? Well, we know that cloud traffic is different because it most likely communicates over an API or JSON. And we're not able to really see the visibility of that data, right? So the old school thinking was, hey, allow, deny users going to specific websites for various reasons. Maybe we have category blocks, maybe we're looking for malicious sites. But today, we're allowing them to go to cloud applications, and we need to have a little bit more visibility into what are they doing within those cloud applications, because it's not necessarily an allow or deny anymore. We want to be able to speak that language of the internet or the cloud services, which is API and JSON. And most web proxies are just not able to do that today. And as I mentioned, for most companies that we have done cloud risk assessments for, this 2,400 distinct cloud apps, this is very common. I've actually seen upwards of 3,500 distinct cloud apps that some of these users have been using. This is pretty interesting, and this is an old article. Forbes 3 years ago had published this article saying that 83% of enterprise workloads will move to the cloud by year 2020. I don't know what the exact stats are for 2020, but I don't think this is very far off, given the situation that we're in with the pandemic. So here's our site-centric model, and most of you are very familiar with this. This is what we've used to design over and over and over. I grew up in this model when I first started within networking and security and building data centers. We focus mostly on that site, where our users were located, and also where our data was located. And so we would build our security and our network around this specific site or multiple sites if we had redundancies. And then we would connect into there from, remote users would connect in either through a VPN and then out through the internet. And maybe some of you still do this today. But the new model has to start thinking a little bit outside of the box, because we just established that our data no longer sits within our data centers. Our users no longer work from our corporate offices. And so we have to take this approach of a user-centric model. Okay, so shifting more into, what's happening with our data. What is happening with our users? Where are they working from? What devices are they using? Where are they going to? And then also, where is our data being housed? Because now we're shifting more into the IaaS space for better efficiencies. We're no longer seeing a lot of companies build out their own data centers with physical hardware. More and more companies are going to AWS, Azure, or GCP. And then users are by nature going to these SaaS applications. And they do this in their personal lives. And we're now seeing, if you haven't already, a lot more organizations move to things like Microsoft 365 or Google G Suite. We're just using more collaboration tools between organizations through these SaaS applications. And so if we take this approach of looking at what the data is, who the user is, where they're going to, and being able to apply our networking principles and our security principles around that, we're able to now be a little bit more efficient. And so we take a completely different approach when we're talking about managing the data, because it's, again, no longer inside of a specific location, and our users, because they're no longer inside of a specific location. And so I look at it in really two things converging here: network transformation, security transformation. At the end of the day, we have users who are trying to get to applications, and those applications can be external apps, either SaaS or web, or even internal apps, because we still have data centers. We're not out of that completely, unless you're a truly cloud forward company. We're just not out of our own data centers yet. But also IaaS, right? So these internal apps may sit within a private IaaS environment. And so the users are just trying to get to their applications. They don't really know, or they don't even care that they're going to an external or an internal application. And they also don't really care about the network or the security transformation. But we, as IT or security professionals, we are looking at it from these two angles. And a lot of times it's almost two different methodologies. I grew up in the network space, transitioned over to security, and today we're seeing these two converge. So the security transformation, we look at requirements that we have to hit. And a lot of that has to do with data protection, threat protection, visibility, risk, and obviously we talked about compliance. These requirements for our security transformation is high on our security requirements list. And there's various technologies we can implement. We're going to talk about some of these in a second. On the network side, we have a different requirement, right? These are a little bit different. They're now thinking about app performance. Maybe that latency is important to them, the uptime, the resilience, the whole user experience. And I think these have always been that the friction between security and network was that security was the friction, and the network team was trying to drive performance. Well, we have different sets of technologies on the network transformation side. And this becomes really important because they have to work together. And as our users move remote, they're working from anywhere, or they could still be within the headquarter branch model, but they're trying to get to their applications, which again could be external, internal, most likely hosted in cloud services, more and more as we're seeing. These two components converge, because now we have security and we have access, and these two come together into a term, if you guys haven't heard of this already, the Secure Access Service Edge. And SASE has been picking up really a lot of attention. And Gartner first coined this, I want to say about 1.5 years ago in a paper. We've referenced it here, where they talk about the convergence of security as a service and network as a service. And just because I just explained to you why that has to happen, right? We now have to pull these things together so that we can provide both that network performance and also the security requirements, and be able to provide them at obviously a speed where our users are not impacted by security decisions anymore. And so they kind of go together, because at the end of the day, that user experience is dependent on this entire stack. So if you put these together, I kind of just took all of our network as a service and security as a service stack, and we'll walk through a use case here in a second, but this is essentially what we're looking at. Is we're very concerned about the network, we're very concerned about the security, and so we put this together into SASE, And we now have to look at it from the angle of this is going to be disruptive to network and network security as IaaS was to the data center. So we're just moving that ball, right? So IaaS has shifted how we think about the data center. Now we need to think about how we design our networks and how we think about our security around that network as that workload now moves to the internet versus our corporate security. So those hub and spoke networks are sort of going obsolete if they're not already. This hub and spoke design doesn't necessarily work anymore. We just need to start thinking about how do we address the new generation of data and users going to that data that's no longer inside of our data center. So SASE is an architecture, it's not a product. I think if there are products out there like Netscope that can help you along the SASE path, but I'd be very careful if somebody tries to sell you a SASE product, because what we're essentially saying here is that we're trying to architect for this problem of moving that workload out to the cloud and not necessarily inside of our networks anymore. So digital transformation is driving this. And here's a use case. We've got Pat from sales. And what's really important is we really need to understand who Pat is, maybe what OU they belong to. Are they remote? Is that user remote? And what device are they coming in on? In this case, Pat's coming in on her corporate laptop. And then what do they want access to? And we'll take it a little bit further than what they want access to, because I just said we want to understand a little bit more about activity. But here, the user just wants to get to, in this case, Salesforce. They just want to get to Salesforce. The network piece of this is we have to make sure that when they get to Salesforce, that we have SaaS acceleration. We can route the traffic. Maybe we can pass it through a firewall in the cloud, WAN optimization, and then the security components pick up. I'm as a security professional, I'm worried about Pat going to Salesforce. Now, is she going to the right Salesforce? Is she going to a competitor's Salesforce? I think that's very important to have visibility into. Is this user going to my corporate instance of Office 365, or are they going to their personal one, or to a competitor's one, or to a partner's OneDrive? And so this is very important of context and being able to see a little bit further into what the user is trying to do. And then the activity, is the user simply just trying to get there? That's fine. Maybe I allow them to view that data, but I won't allow them to upload or download files into it. So that being able to have that granular control from the point of identifying the user, where they are, what device they're coming in on, where they're trying to get to, and then the data they're trying to utilize. So this type of architecture will help lower your risk profile, because now you can provide access to users to go out and do things more securely, and they don't have to find ways around your security controls. I think it's, as a security professional, we've always tried to block users from going to places we just don't have control over or visibility into. And I think what that has done for us as security professionals is realize that our users have gone around those controls. And just like that image with the fence, we put up these barriers, we put up these tools, and sometimes they just don't work, because we need to step back and allow the users and enable those users to do their jobs and maybe reduce that friction that they have that we introduce as security professionals. So here are some key benefits for SASE. We want to be able to reduce complexity and cost, right? I think that's a given. I've never spoken to a security team that has unlimited budget. This just doesn't happen. And we may get increased budget, but we don't have unlimited budget. So we want to be able to reduce the complexity and the cost of how we deploy our security solutions. We also want to improve security. And I think SASE does those two things because now we're able to scale it. And I'm able to reduce that complexity by shifting my perimeter out into cloud workload, right? So this increased effectiveness of our network and the network security staff becomes extremely important as we move forward, because we know that our data is going everywhere from everywhere. The ability to see it and the ability to put policies in place seems like that could be a problem. But in a SASE model, we increase that effectiveness because we're now shifting that workload out to the cloud, and we can scale it a lot better. A lot of times we can do this from a very single dashboard. In Netscope's case, we can do a lot of these from a single dashboard and not have to hop between appliance and appliance like we used to. So I'll talk about the improvement of performance and latency. I think this is an important aspect to it, because we talked about users, that user experience and potential access to their data, that they just get frustrated if we start to slow that down or start to impact their work. But I think in the handout that we've provided you today, we talk about our new edge, and I'll get into that in a second, how you can test that speed. I think by having a fully implemented SASE type architecture, you'll be able to improve the performance, not just introduce security controls, but introduce those security controls, do it efficiently, and at the same time improve that network performance and latency. So the lower operational overhead, yeah, that becomes important to us, right? As someone who's run a security program, we're always being asked to do more with less. And so if we take out that entire appliance stack that we would normally have inside of our data center, we're actually reducing our overhead, because now you don't have to worry about racking, stacking, patching vulnerabilities, managing all of these appliances. We can just hop right into a SASE cloud provided service where you can just simply go in and edit policies, and hopefully those policies translate across all of these security things that you're trying to hit, all these security issues that you're trying to address. And so if you have a single policy or a single dashboard that you can do most of these things, or even potentially all of them, it reduces your overhead, right? So now all you have to do is make a connection into that cloud security. All right, so I'm not going to talk about Netscope specifically and how we take clients on a SASE journey. I think what's important here is that we don't get to SASE in a single swoop. It takes time, it takes planning, and if you're not already thinking about some of the fundamentals of getting to SASE, now's the time to start thinking about them. I actually like to take people on this journey and just go step by step, but your steps are going to be determined by your appetite for change, and also the contracts you already have in place. And so a lot of times we like to start really about this data, taking it from a data center approach into a data centric approach, being able to at least get the visibility into where your data is going and establishing that new perimeter. Okay, so once we can start making the fundamental changes on just our thought process and our architecture designs, we can start moving down this path, and then hopefully, you're ready to make that step and say, I'm living the SASE architecture. Now, I've talked to a lot of CISOs. We've talked about zero trust. I'm sure you guys have a lot of conversation in this conference around zero trust. I also give presentations on zero trust specifically. It does add, zero trust is very important for the SASE architecture, but a lot of people even struggle with the term zero trust or how to get there. At the end of the day, it's not about these marketing terms like zero trust or SASE. It's about stepping back and understanding where you need to be as a security program, where your perimeter needs to be and how it's shifting and how your data is shifting, how your user behavior is shifting, and then how to plan to be there as soon as possible, because we're not going to do this overnight. So Netscope Security Cloud as a SASE architecture helps provide a lot of these services inside of our security cloud. We're able to provide that security around your web traffic through secure web gateway, provide visibility into SaaS applications that some of your shadow IT may be going to, or just normal business users are trying to go to, and then provide that granular approach to those SaaS applications. We're also able to secure private apps through something called Netscope Private Access, and that would potentially help or replace some of your VPN connections. So you're not coming back into VPN appliances anymore. I think we've seen a lot of companies come to us over the past year where they just outgrew their VPN concentrators, and we're able to have them come through our private access to their apps, whether it's in the cloud or inside of their legacy data centers. So a lot of these functionalities, and if you have more questions, I'll give you the contacts for the Canada account managers where you can get more information around this. But New Edge, this is something that we included in your package, has helped us speed up that network. The onboard your users into our New Edge platform, and then optimize that traffic to cloud services. And so you can do a speed test. Here's the location. You can just go to netscope.com/platform/New Edge, and you will see, take the speed test, whether your users are in Canada or the US, Asia, Europe. You can do a simulated speed test to show how New Edge is able to speed up that latency. All right, so here are some really high-level impact SASE use cases. I don't think I have time to go through all of them, but obviously we talked about SaaS visibility being an important aspect of where our data is going, and do we have any compliance violations. So if we're able to have visibility into where our data is going, we can then put policies and controls in place, and then even figure out if our data is being exposed within our sanctioned cloud storage applications. I'll skip over unintentional data movement. Actually is really important. I see this all the time, even here at Netscope, where a user might be connected to the wrong cloud backup or the wrong cloud collaboration tool, and try to back up or copy files there. So that's a lot of times it's unintentional. Customers also see this as well, but we need to be able to see it, have the visibility, and then apply those controls in the data movement going to some of those risky cloud applications. Now, risky activities inside of cloud applications. This is real, on a high level, just understanding whether my users are trying to post or edit or create, upload, download files, and have that granular control over their activities within cloud apps. And to take it a step further, we can also take a risk approach by looking at users going to risky applications. If they're going to a risky application, we can maybe put up a coaching page. And so there are, you don't have to just block users. You can put up a coaching page. I have found that when we do a coaching page for users going to an uncategorized website, for example, 90% of them don't even proceed, and just off the coaching page. So we would say, you are going to a location or a website that has not been categorized yet. Are you sure you want to proceed? And 90% of people do not proceed. They turn around. The cloud phishing is really important, because I know this has been, phishing attempts or ransomware has been in the news lately. A lot of the payloads are no longer coming through just an attachment in a file through email. I mean, a lot of times they're being cloud delivered, through a bit.ly link or a Dropbox file. Sometimes these are cloud launched, and so we need to start to think more about how we address the cloud phishing and the cloud malware and the threats that are coming down through the pipeline. So here we have 44% of threats are cloud enabled. I think this is actually growing, probably a lot higher today. But obviously, we now need to be aware of another attack vector and combined with the ones that we already see. All right, so the Netscope Advantage, obviously the comprehensive data protection. We want to be able to take that data-centric approach and allow our users to use the data that they need to use, apply policies in where we see potential compliance issues, where we see potential security issues, but still allow users to do their jobs. And this superior user experience is really, really important to us. So making sure that there's really low latency. Security is sometimes an oxymoron, but we kind of taking this to heart, where it's kind of transparent to the user. They don't even know that they are that they are going to go through all of these security checks once they hit their cloud applications. And obviously, Netscope is built for efficiency. All of our policies, like I said, are in a single dashboard, a single platform where you can control or build policies based on where the user is trying to go to, what they're trying to do. And then even those, the network private access, Netscope private access that we use is also built on the same platform. So secure access cloud, this is super important because digital transformation requires security transformation. We cannot have proper digital transformation if we don't include security. And security transformation is required because all of our users are going into, like we said, 80–90% of our traffic is now going into cloud. And so, cloud access security brokers, CASB, this is where we started. This is where Netscope started. It becomes really important. DLP, threat protection, IaaS, next-gen secure web gateway, zero trust, and cloud firewall. These all become very important components of how we now need to think about this secure access cloud. Now, if you're still thinking, I have a lock, I can lock down my users, and I can check that box. You gotta take a deeper look and just make sure that your controls can actually do what your business needs, and you're not just putting something together because you have to do it or your compliance says you have to do it, but you do it in a way that can allow your users to still work, and then put the controls around your most sensitive data. So in summary, digital transformation is forcing security and networking to be transformed, and SASE unifies that. So it takes a modern security and network functionality into a cloud native service. Forget about the whole marketing SASE term. We need to do this as security professionals. So start thinking about the new perimeter, where our data has shifted outside of our data centers. We need to now start thinking about where our data is going, what our users are trying to do with that data, and no longer start building those walls around the walls and the moats around our castle, because our castles don't exist anymore. Our population has shifted outside of the castle, and our data has moved outside of there. So Netscope provides that an innovative SASE platform that provides fast and secure access for users, regardless of where they're trying to get to. Their cloud apps, their websites, or even your private apps that may be inside of an IaaS or inside of your private data center, both. All right. So I'll just wrap it up here. If you guys have any questions, you can definitely reach out to me on LinkedIn, or reach out to Mike or Sam. They are our Canada account managers. I would love to get back up to Winnipeg one day and do this, hopefully next year, in person, and make it sort of a homecoming. It's been a while since I left Winnipeg, and I do miss the city. So at this point, I'll open up for any questions if anyone has questions on SASE or Netscope. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for attending this session. I'm happy to anyone that I've lost touch with. For anyone who's here from Winnipeg or Calgary or Vancouver, certainly reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm, as I said, happy to be here. Happy to answer any questions. Reach out to Mike or Sam if you got any questions on Netscope, or helping you think about getting you from point A to point B, which is doing a full SASE roadmap to get you there. All right. Thanks again. Have a great rest of your conference. Bye.